Thrive webinars. We're very excited to get stuck into this session today on how a connected employee experience wins in the AI era. I'm Helen Marshall. I'm Chief Learning Officer here at Thrive. I've been with Thrive for over 4 years now, started off in the role of Head of Learning and moved into the role of CLO coming up to 3 years ago now. And I'm joined by the wonderful Frankie, who I'll let introduce himself as well.
Afternoon. Thank you, Helen. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. My name is Frankie Woodhead. I'm the Chief Product and Technology Officer here at Thrive. So I'm responsible for all of our great product and engineering team, building scalable and innovative products. I'm really excited to share the stage with Helen today around how AI is enabling our customers.
Awesome. Thanks, Frankie. In today's session, we're going to take a look at what's going on in the wider industry and some of that scene setting that contributes to where our product is headed in the future, as well as taking a look at some of our own product and where it's headed as well, and how we're adapting to the changing experience of the workplace as we go. So I'd just like to start off by sharing a bit of a reflection and a story of a situation that was shared in our Thrive Live event that we run every year, which is a big event where we bring all of our customers together under one roof to share and workshop ideas. And a couple of years ago, we had a speaker called Henry Coutinho Mason, who labels himself as a reluctant futurist. And he was talking about the state of the workplace now versus people's experience outside of the workplace. And he was talking about how a lot of technology really enables us to live quite seamless and frictionless lives outside of work. And actually then what happens when people come into the workplace is they're faced with a reality that looks as slightly different to that, where technology doesn't seem quite as streamlined. So what happens there is we have certain expectations that are met with a friction point with our workplace realities. And so how that experience pans out actually changes the way that we can function at work and the quality of the work that we can do. So we're going to take a look at how we can get rid of that friction essentially, and how does L&D contribute to, I suppose, fixing that gap or helping to fix that gap between those expectations outside of the workplace and the workplace realities once you're within it as well. Now, it's worth noting that there are 4 main generations currently in play within the workforce broadly. So we're looking at baby boomers who were born around the 1960s to Gen Z who were born in the 2010s. So a huge, vast array of different ages, different experiences within our workforces currently. And we know from conversations with our own customers that being able to bridge that gap between experience and new ideas coming into the workplace is a real point of concern. And just to put that into context slightly, the internet first became popularized in the 1990s. So those baby boomers who are in the workplace currently have seen a vast amount of change. And then the new generations, we're looking into Gen Alpha now coming into the workplace, are going to be one of the first AI literate workforces coming into play as well. So lots of change, lots of different things going on. And so how do we cater to all of that? And how do we adapt our experiences to make sure that knowledge is shared in the right ways across our workforces? Now, we all know what makes a great employee experience. There's a few things listed on screen here, from focusing on individual people and manager development to the general overall approach to health and well-being within a business and thinking about things that contribute to that culture. But I think the main thing that comes out of the conversation, and Frankie, I'm not sure if you would agree, that actually when you're thinking about employee experience, it's again around that kind of seamless experience of tools and technology that enable you to do your job effectively. Is that the same for you, Frankie?
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. And when you talk about the generations that are joining the workforce, we've got many people that are coming out of university now into the world of work, or just joining the world of work in kind of late teenage years, that are just so used to digital only experiences. So some of the legacy approaches that just don't feel unified, don't feel connected, don't feel together, are just very alien to what they'd usually expect. So yeah, I think certainly the next generation of people entering the workforce just have very, very high expectations. And even the people that are kind of 10, 20 years into their career have been digital native from the very early years as well. So yeah, completely agree. It's employee experience has just been compared to your personal life and then how you interact digitally as well.
And I think when we're looking at the scene in front of us here, so we might not have captured everything when it comes to employee experience here, but what you can see is that there's a whole array of things that contribute to that within an organization. So creating that seamless employee experience is a challenge for L&D teams and how they contribute towards that as well. Obviously, it doesn't all fall under the remit of L&D teams, but they have to think about all of these different elements when they're thinking about that broader experience of people, and then coming back to making it as seamless as possible, to my point earlier. When we're thinking about employee experience, the reality is a bit harder for people. So there's a Mercer report that we've referenced here, and we can share with you after the webinar if you're interested, which focuses in on actually how much of a challenge it can be to create the right type of employee experience for people. Largely, as you can see from the numbers on the side of the screen on the left, it's because of limited resources, or limited budget, limited headcount that fall under that, but also potentially leadership support from people. And that becomes a challenge because you're having to do more with less. Essentially, you're having to bring people along on that journey and make sure you're doing that in an effective way. But there's also things like inability to change manager behavior, insufficient skills in employee experience design. That's definitely something we're hearing across the market as well. And as you can see, there's lots of different almost tension points here that we have to think about when we're designing that broader employee experience. There are three things that I would highlight from this report, though, which are around 20% of people saying that they have suboptimal HR technology. So a lot of people using clunky and outdated systems to try and deliver really slick employee experience. And that's where that point of tension really comes into play, particularly if you're experiencing things like being able to order some food and it be delivered right to your door without even really having to think about it, or ordering an Uber and going from one place to another and really not even having to speak to another human if you didn't want to. And so when we're thinking about experiences like that, and then technology where you're having to sign in several times in different locations, trying to make things communicate or talk to each other in ways that they can't, that becomes a real point of contention within the workplace. And then things like ineffective internal operations and unengaging internal communications. I mean, we know, and Frankie, you'll know that internal communications is a real sore point for a lot of our customers, and one point that a lot of people are trying to fix and trying to remedy. And so we're seeing a lot of L&D teams coming into more of that comms role, thinking more strategically around the comms that they're delivering as an L&D team, but also bringing company-wide comms under their remit or contributing to them as well. So those stats are potentially not too surprising based on the conversations that we're having with our customers as well. To put that into context with our own customer base, we've drawn some data from our current customers, thinking about that point I made earlier around limited headcount and limited budgets, limited resources for different companies. And so we drew some data from our own customer base to look at actually, if you are a company of a certain size, so on the table on the left, if we count that by number of licenses for a business, we wanted to look at if you had a range of users in your business, what would be the average headcount of your L&D team for that size of business from our own customer base? So as you can see, when there's between 500 and really 10,000 members of staff in an organization, the size of the L&D team isn't varying too drastically. So let's say around 4 or 5 people within that L&D team serving that many people. But then when you jump to over 10,000, there is a slight increase to 9.5 members of the team to serve that many people. But what that really shows is that we are really doing more with less, particularly when you get to those businesses that are around the 5,000 to 10,000 employee mark, that they're having to do a lot for a lot of people with a limited headcount. So it's definitely something that we're seeing, that we're experiencing, and that we know is a challenge for our customers. So how about we just make it easier to get work done? I think that's something that we've been concentrating on quite a lot recently within our product. And I suppose what does good look like then in that case? So we think that results in something that is frictionless, that obviously takes away those tension points for people, that makes something really seamless, and it doesn't feel clunky for people, but also something that is actionable, that can contribute to real business impact and metrics and driving the bottom line for the business. But ultimately, when we're thinking about new technology and AI, and we're going to dig into that a little bit more, what we're really focusing on is the human, and where the human side of this conversation comes into play. Because ultimately, AI is there to be leveraged to make things more frictionless, to make things more easily actionable. But ultimately, the human is the one that's driving those at the end of the day, and having the right conversations and driving businesses forward. So what does that mean in principle? So when we think about frictionless, I'm going to come back to the point I made right at the beginning about how can L&D really help to bridge that gap between where people are and where organizations are. And I'll pass over to Frankie to dig into this in a little bit more detail.
Perfect. Thank you, Helen. So yeah, since Thrive was founded, we believe social bite-sized learning is kind of integral to how you kind of run your day. The same is now true for employee experience. As we spoke about that timeline, our lives have become quite disparate. So we've got many apps. You used to read a single newspaper. Now you've got many apps, places to update, whether that's your finances, content consumption, how you consume social content, news. We just go to so many different places. And the same is true for employee experience. You might have an expenses app, you might have your HR system, your learning system, but it's very, very difficult for an individual to understand exactly where we need to go. Within Thrive, we see this as a huge opportunity to integrate learning and employee experience back into a single place, seeing communications, overdue learning, that next podcast that matches your goals and ambitions all in one place. We really want to optimize for that overall employee experience, but learning very much in the middle of that. From an AI assistant perspective, we recently launched Kiki. So Kiki has followed the huge emergence of generative AI, but has hugely simplified that experience for our colleagues, where they no longer rely on keyword searching or guessing the kind of semantic similarity of content. Instead, it's enabled our knowledge workers and people that are frontline working directly with customers to get access to the answers they need in the moment they need them. We're in a very unique position. We have tens of thousands of content items that are proprietary for our customers. They're not available on the public internet. They're kind of held deeply on Thrive or within their own kind of SharePoint sites. But we see that as a unique opportunity for us to enable our customers to provide that knowledge to their colleagues when they need them. We see AI playing a vital role with a number of applications for our customers. The first one is instant knowledge for customer-facing teams. The second one is boosting efficiency for people in operations, engineering, or product type roles. We want to enable functions to scale 24/7, answering policy questions, so you don't need your HR team available, but actually people are able to get answers to their questions when they need them. And then learning in the flow of work with knowledge reinforcement versus just one-off learning that we're very kind of become used to. To give you a few examples of how our customers are using Thrive, think of an end user at Vodafone wanting to understand the key rationale to the next iPhone launch or the next Google Pixel device. What are the kind of benefits? What are the pros and cons of each? Straight away, rather than going to have to look for that content, you can ask questions in the moment and get answers that you need. Similarly, at Nando's, think of an employee at Nando's who needs to understand the ingredients of a particular menu item. Today, or historically, that might have required them to go into an ingredient list, find out the topic. Again, Kiki and AI can really support that. The final example is Avon. So reps who work for Avon, who partner with Avon, being quizzed on new product launches. AI is so good at consuming content, enabling individuals to role play, to test, to question, and that's where we really see Kiki playing a critical part. This doesn't require a learner to have completed the learning package initially. It just answers in plain English. But obviously that's part of the story. Having knowledge in the moment is critical, but at the same time, it maybe doesn't provide that kind of foundational learning and career path that is critical to you. And that's why things have to be really actionable and things need to be trackable from a data perspective as well. In
I think
turn,
also, sorry, Frankie, before you move on, I think the being able to access the right information at the right time from numerous sources is so important to people. Having that kind of one source of truth, and as you say, that kind of product specific knowledge in the moment. I know we know from a lot of our retail customers that actually it's really significant to be able to be on the shop floor, be able to search and have the right information in your hand whilst you're talking to customers. So it's that kind of bringing it all together in one place, but then making it really easily accessible as well, which seems really exciting.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I think all of that kind of grounded on kind of deep data. So it's great to have access to tools and to see how your business is performing. But as you referenced earlier, Helen, with regards to return on investment and the kind of people agenda, being able to demonstrate return investment, be able to demonstrate how learning is impacting your business is really, really critical. In today's world, margins are tighter. All company investment is tied to return on investment, and historically L&D ROI has been linked to colleague retention, career progress. They're great outcomes, but they're fairly intangible in places. It's quite difficult to prove causation and correlation. Where we see the best results of our customers is where L&D teams tie their results back to business outcomes. So whether that's driving revenue, improving costs, directly impacting the customer experience. And finally, as we've discussed at the very start, retaining colleagues and supporting colleagues with their career growth is critical, but it's part of the story, not the whole story. AI not only provides the ability to move faster, it also enables quicker and deeper insights into your business. And as we see the role of kind of more agentic AI agents, the options to automate, speed up manual work for L&D teams will enable them to go much deeper on tracking business value. I know your team have had great success of this within Thrive, Helen, utilizing a number of tools. Kiki is one of them, but maybe you can give a little bit more detail around how you and your team are utilizing these tools in the Thrive context.
Yeah, I think the one thing that is really important for L&D teams, especially, and something that we really have struggled with historically, is exactly what you just said, Frankie, in order to prove ROI. So being able to have the right data and pull that out in a way that actually means something to the rest of the business is really significant. So I think when we're thinking about the type of initiatives that we're running internally, we want to see who's engaging with them, who's following through, who's sharing the right sentiment afterwards, sharing with other people as well. And that can be really useful to see in terms of actually who's doing what and why are they doing that. So we do an initiative called Demo Drop Fridays every fortnight, where we can assign content to people based on what's going on across our product, and get people to reflect on those particular moments, to share what their reflections are, how they might utilize this information moving forward, whether they can identify any customers that certain things would be really useful for, or even to identify particular knowledge gaps if we're assessing certain things as well. So it becomes much easier to start to tell that bigger picture story when you're piecing certain initiatives together in that way.
Yeah. Ironically, I got your email this morning, Helen, about my public speaking training that I went on a few weeks ago and the impact it's had. So hopefully we'll hear from the comments of how it's going. But yeah, I think that follow up and the recognition of how is this training, this piece of technology, how is it impacting the business and the individuals is really, really critical. So yeah, completely agree. And it's great to see you championing that within Thrive as well.
Brilliant. Thanks, Frankie. I think also to bring that back to the point around the human and who it is that's driving initiatives like that. Sorry, had you finished? You just moved back.
Right.
No, all good. I think it's really important to think about actually how you piece those picture points together and utilize that data to tell a story. And the way to do that is, yes, you can utilize AI to summarize data and to give you a perspective, but actually being able to communicate that in a really human way is really important. But then I think the other thing that people are craving at the moment is that social connection. So how can L&D leverage social connection within their organization to bring people together, to create communities? That's something that obviously is quite personal to me, but also we see time and again in our own customers that actually being able to create community actually drives better results for businesses and can allow people to share knowledge more effectively across businesses. So I'd be interesting to hear your perspective on this, Frankie.
Yeah, no, I think we obviously, I'm a technologist and products That's my background. I've spent kind of 15, 20 years in that field. So I've spent most of my time talking about that. When we were at the World of Learning together, we asked a question to the audience that said, how many people have ever been employed or promoted by an AI assistant or an AI? And not a single hand went up. So that's why I think also we're so big on kind of ensuring our technology is moving at a rapid rate. We deeply believe at Thrive the impact of humans and connections and how we can bring that kind of social context, because ultimately it's going to be each of us that configure AI. We either provide the budget to our teams to purchase it or to not. So yeah, whilst AI is a huge technological revolution which speeds up productivity, it supports us with major kind of efficiency benefits. Humans ultimately are going to be the people that either enable this for your business or don't. It's why at Thrive we've recently invested in acquiring a business called Guider. This is a peer-to-peer and group mentoring capability that we're in the process of integrating, and we're excited to launch this at Thrive Live very, very soon. But yeah, I think this kind of human element, the community spirit, the kind of social dimension of learning, coupled with technology and AI, is going to be our view on how we win and how we support our customers and prospects in the future.
Yeah, I also think to bring it back to the point at the beginning around the different generations in the workforce, that's where mentoring becomes really significant for me. So when there are new people coming in, whether you're early careers or whether you're just new to a business, being able to be mentored by someone who's been with the business longer, who has experience in certain areas, is a huge advantage to people to close that gap between knowledge within your businesses as well. So yeah, I think that's really important as we move into 2026.
Yeah, I think we've seen this with, I know you're big in kind of your Women in Learning network, Helen, and kind of how you're using the concepts of WhatsApps and socials and kind of group gatherings. They're the types of things that really do support people flourishing. I know you've got loads of amazing success stories of people that have been enabled through them types of groups. So again, I think that kind of social dimension, that real human connection dimension, is so critical to learning. And I think, like I said, 90% of the conversation at the moment is around technology. And I think that's broadly right. But for me, if we can get to kind of 75-25, where technology really is leading the way, but it's there to enable them human connections and that social kind of experience, that's where we really see the future going in the next kind of 12 months. And I guess just to introduce, and I won't kind of do a big sales pitch on this because we've got lots to come, but ultimately where we see this is kind of our spaces and social type context. So this is going to be an area where our clients can create spaces where people in similar positions, whether that's aspiring leaders, women in groups, cohorts for onboarding, all them different types of areas where you have a shared goal, a shared objective, or a shared perspective based on where you are in the business, and how we kind of bring them people together and allow that connection to happen. So again, coming very soon, but it's kind of how we bring that human and social dimension to learning.
And I think this is going to be really significant for a lot of customers, but also from a Thrive perspective. I can think of an example where we're bringing a lot of our customer-facing teams together soon to do some in-person training, and actually having a space like this to be able to utilize, to share, to communicate about certain topics is really important and really useful. So it's that kind of the extended experience ultimately of being able to share and communicate around a particular thing, as well as generally just around something in general that you might be interested in sharing across the business, but actually as part of those leadership development programs or ERGs, as you've said, Frankie. So yeah, it's really exciting to see that kind of coming in platform.
Yeah, well, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak about some of the exciting things coming down the track. So I'll hand over to you to let us to wrap up.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I think one of the things that's really important when we think about as we've said, that how we create a more streamlined experience is that actually it's very clear that workplace tools need to catch up, and we need to create those seamless experiences for people that become that source of truth, that become that kind of one-stop shop for people for their own development needs and the needs of the business ultimately. And I think the only way that you can really do that effectively is actually to sit down with your tech suppliers and have an honest conversation about the art of the possible. So time and again, we will hear from our own customers talking about other vendors who they're not getting really anything back from. They're not really understanding how to use products strategically enough, and they're not really understanding the outcomes that those customers are driving towards. That's definitely something at Thrive that we pride ourselves on, is that we're actually very focused on the relationships we have with our customers. We want to see the best for them, but we also would tell them if our product isn't the right fit for them as well. So definitely, if you're utilizing any tech that is, even if it's not Thrive, sit down with the vendor and have an honest conversation to see what you can achieve, particularly as there's so much rapid change going on across the landscape at the moment. So really appreciate you taking the time to listen to us today. Obviously, we're open for any questions if there are any, but if not, feel free to reach out to myself or Frankie on LinkedIn or any of the team and have that chat with us. We'd be more than happy to speak to you.
Perfect. Thank you, Helen. I think that takes us. We're 4 minutes ahead of schedule, but I think that takes us to close. So thank you very much, everyone. I appreciate Helen again for hosting and pulling together all of the information, and also to Bex and to Rich, who have worked tirelessly behind the scenes to make this happen. So yeah, thank you to everyone that's joined, and look forward to seeing many of you at Thrive Live in a few weeks' time.
Awesome. Good stuff. Thanks, Frankie. Thanks, everyone. Bye.